that archaeologists provide is that there is a lot of evidence of humans in the Ice Age, and they appear to be all hunter-gatherers. But like you said, only a small percent studied by archaeologists.
That's right. A tiny percent of every archaeological site has been studied by archaeologists too.
The archaeologist's voice trembled as he read Graham Hancock's final letter. After decades of ridicule from mainstream academia, Hancock had uncovered evidence that would shatter everything we believed about human civilization. The letter contained coordinates to sites across the globe, each one hiding fragments of a terrifying truth. We weren't the first advanced civilization on Earth, and we won't be the last. 12,000 years ago, a cosmic catastrophe wiped out a technological society that had mastered engineering, astronomy, and agriculture during the depths of the Ice Age. The survivors scattered across the planet, carrying fragments of lost knowledge that would seed the mysterious appearance of civilization in places like Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley. The evidence was always there. We just refused to see it. The story begins with fire falling from the sky. 12,900 years ago, fragments of a massive comet slammed into the North American ice sheet with the force of 1,000 nuclear weapons. In an instant, the world changed forever. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis describes a cosmic catastrophe that mainstream science spent decades trying to ignore. The evidence was overwhelming, but it challenged fundamental assumptions about gradual climate change and human development that academic careers were built upon. The impact signatures are unmistakable once you know what to look for. Across North America, Europe, and Asia, a thin black layer marks the boundary between two different worlds. Below this layer, you find evidence of diverse megafauna, giant ground sloths, saber-toothed cats, woolly mammoths. Above it, mass extinction. The black layer contains microscopic diamonds that only form under extreme pressure and temperature conditions, spherules of melted rock scattered across continents, platinum concentrations that spike to levels only seen in cosmic impact events, carbon deposits from continent-wide wildfires that burned for months. Dr. Richard Firestone's team at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory identified these impact markers at over 50 sites across 4 continents. The dating was consistent, 12,900 years ago, give or take a few decades. The geographic spread suggested multiple impact points from a fragmented comet that broke apart as it approached Earth. But here's what makes this discovery terrifying. The impacts didn't just kill the megafauna, they destroyed something else, evidence of human technological achievement that had developed during the Ice Age. The Younger Dryas period that followed the impacts represents one of the most dramatic climate reversals in Earth's recent history. Global temperatures plummeted by 15 degrees Fahrenheit in less than a decade. Ice sheets that had been retreating suddenly advanced again. Sea levels dropped by over 300 feet as water locked up in expanding glaciers. Any coastal settlements, any river valley civilizations, any evidence of Ice Age human achievement would have been buried under advancing ice or drowned when the ice finally melted 13,000 years later. The geological record of human technological development was systematically erased by the very catastrophe that destroyed the civilization that created it. The meltwater pulse that followed tells the rest of the story. When the expanded ice sheets finally collapsed around 11,600 years ago, they released freshwater floods that dwarfed anything in recorded history. Meltwater Pulse 1b raised global sea levels by over 60 feet in less than 3 centuries. Entire continental shelves disappeared underwater, taking with them any evidence of coastal settlements where advanced civilizations might have flourished. Think about what this means. If an advanced civilization had developed during the Ice Age, when sea levels were 300 feet lower than today, all their major population centers would have been located on what is now the ocean floor. The cosmic impact would have destroyed their inland sites. The subsequent flooding would have erased their coastal cities. The geological record would show exactly what we see, a mysterious gap followed by the sudden appearance of sophisticated civilizations with no apparent developmental period. The resistance to this evidence reveals something disturbing about academic orthodoxy. When Firestone's team first published their impact findings, the response wasn't scientific curiosity, but institutional hostility. Conferences refused their presentations. Journals rejected their papers. Funding disappeared. Why such fierce resistance to evidence of cosmic catastrophe? Because it implied something that threatened the foundation of archaeological thinking, that human civilization could rise to great heights and then be completely erased from the geological record, leaving only fragments and survivors to start over. The proof of this lost civilization wasn't destroyed by cosmic impact or rising seas. It was hiding in plain sight, dismissed by archaeologists who couldn't accept what the evidence was telling them. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey represents the most shocking challenge to conventional human development timelines. This massive temple complex, with its precisely carved stone pillars and sophisticated astronomical alignments, predates agriculture by over 1,000 years. According to mainstream archaeology, hunter-gatherers built this monument using stone tools and organized labor that shouldn't have been possible for nomadic tribes. But the construction techniques tell a different story. The limestone pillars at Göbekli Tepe weigh up to 16 tons each. They're carved with intricate reliefs of animals and abstract symbols that demonstrate artistic sophistication far beyond what we attribute to Stone Age cultures. The precision of the stonework rivals anything produced by later civilizations with metal tools and established agricultural societies. The astronomical alignments reveal knowledge that challenges our understanding of prehistoric capabilities. The temple's orientation tracks the precession of equinoxes, a 26,000-year cycle that requires centuries of careful observation to detect. The pillar arrangements mark specific star positions that would have been visible 11,500 years ago, suggesting the builders possessed advanced astronomical knowledge and the mathematical ability to predict celestial movements. Similar impossibilities appear at sites across the globe, all dating to the same post-impact period when civilization supposedly began from scratch. At Pumapunku in Bolivia, granite blocks weighing over 100 tons are cut with precision that modern stonemasons struggle to achieve. The interlocking joints require tolerances measured in millimeters. The surfaces are polished to mirror-like finishes using techniques that remain unexplained. Conventional archaeology attributes this to Bronze Age cultures using copper tools, but copper cannot cut granite. The Sphinx in Egypt presents another timeline problem that mainstream archaeology refuses to address. Geological analysis of the weathering patterns on the Sphinx enclosure reveals extensive water erosion, the kind produced by heavy rainfall over thousands of years. But Egypt's climate has been arid for over 7,000 years. The water erosion pattern suggests the Sphinx was carved during a much wetter period, pushing its construction back to at least 10,000 years ago. The metallurgical evidence adds another layer of impossibility. Sites across the Middle East and Anatolia show evidence of advanced metalworking techniques appearing suddenly around 10,000 years ago, with no developmental period. Complex alloys, precision casting, and sophisticated smelting methods appear fully formed in the archaeological record, as if the knowledge was imported rather than developed locally. The agricultural revolution itself defies conventional explanations. Multiple crop species were simultaneously domesticated across different continents with no apparent connection between the regions. Wheat, barley, and legumes in the Middle East, rice in Asia, maize in the Americas. The genetic modifications required for domestication should have taken thousands of years of selective breeding, yet they appear simultaneously in the archaeological record around 10,000 years ago. This pattern repeats globally, advanced knowledge appearing suddenly without developmental phases, precisely when survivors of the cosmic catastrophe would have been establishing new settlements and sharing fragments of their lost civilization's achievements. The terrifying truth is that these aren't primitive attempts at construction or agriculture. They're the degraded remnants of a technological civilization whose survivors were forced to rebuild with limited resources and fragmented knowledge after their world was destroyed by fire from the sky. The survivors of the cosmic catastrophe didn't just rebuild, they carried with them fragments of knowledge that would fundamentally alter the course of human development. These weren't primitive hunter-gatherers struggling to survive. They were the remnants of an advanced civilization, forced to adapt their sophisticated understanding to a world that had been reset to zero. The evidence of this great dispersal appears in the most unlikely places, the flood myths that appear in every culture on Earth, despite many of these civilizations having no contact with each other for thousands of years. The Sumerian Epic of Gilgamesh describes a global deluge that destroyed the world, with only a few survivors preserving the knowledge of the antediluvian civilization. The Hindu Puranas tell of cyclic destructions and rebirths of human civilization, with advanced knowledge preserved by divine teachers who appear after each catastrophe. The Hopi prophecies speak of previous worlds destroyed by fire and ice, with survivors carrying sacred knowledge to seed new civilizations. These aren't primitive campfire stories. They're historical accounts passed down through oral tradition, describing the same cosmic catastrophe from different perspectives across the globe. But the real proof lies in what happened next: the sudden, simultaneous emergence of sophisticated civilizations in locations that should have had no contact with each other. Around 3500 BCE, advanced urban centers appeared almost overnight in Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China. These weren't gradual developments from simple farming communities. They were fully formed civilizations with complex writing systems, advanced mathematics, sophisticated architecture, and astronomical knowledge that rivaled anything achieved in the ancient world. The mystery deepens when you examine what these civilizations knew. The Sumerian number system was based on 60, allowing for complex astronomical calculations that wouldn't be matched until the modern era. Egyptian pyramid construction required knowledge of pi, the golden ratio, and precise astronomical alignments. The Indus Valley cities featured advanced urban planning with sophisticated drainage systems and standardized weights and measures. This knowledge didn't develop locally. It appeared fully formed, as if it had been imported by people who already possessed advanced understanding of mathematics, engineering, and astronomy. The priesthood systems that emerged in these early civilizations provide the clearest evidence of knowledge preservation. In every culture, a specialized class of priests maintained complex astronomical observations, mathematical calculations, and engineering knowledge that far exceeded what their societies should have been capable of developing independently. These weren't religious leaders in the modern sense. They were knowledge keepers, survivors, or descendants of survivors who had been tasked with preserving fragments of their lost civilization's achievements. The mystery schools of Egypt, the astronomical priests of Mesopotamia, the Brahmin caste of India all served the same function of maintaining advanced knowledge within societies that were still rebuilding from catastrophic collapse. The architectural evidence tells the same story. Megalithic construction techniques appear simultaneously across different continents with no apparent connection between the builders. The precision stone cutting at Sacsayhuaman in Peru matches techniques used at Baalbek in Lebanon. The astronomical alignments at Newgrange in Ireland mirror those found at Angkor Wat in Cambodia. These aren't coincidences. They're the signatures of a dispersed knowledge system, carried by survivors who understood advanced engineering principles and shared them with the primitive societies they encountered during their migrations across the post-catastrophe world. The terrifying truth about human civilization isn't that we're the pinnacle of technological achievement. It's that we're simply the latest society to rediscover knowledge that has been mastered and lost multiple times throughout human history. The pattern repeats with clockwork precision across the millennia. Civilizations rise, achieve technological sophistication, become complacent in their mastery over nature, and then face catastrophic events that reset human development to primitive levels. The survivors retain fragments of advanced knowledge, but within a few generations, the understanding of how that knowledge was originally developed disappears completely. Look at what happened after the fall of Rome. Within centuries, European societies lost the ability to build aqueducts, create concrete that could withstand millennia, or organize the massive engineering projects that had defined Roman civilization. The knowledge didn't just become inconvenient, it became literally incomprehensible to people whose immediate concerns were survival and basic agriculture. The same pattern appears after every major civilizational collapse. The Maya abandoned their sophisticated cities and astronomical observations. The builders of Easter Island forgot how to move massive stone statues. The Khmer Empire lost the engineering knowledge required to maintain Angkor Wat's complex hydraulic systems. But here's what makes the pattern truly disturbing. The speed of forgetting accelerates with technological complexity. Modern civilization depends on interconnected systems that few people fully understand. How many individuals could rebuild a computer chip fabrication facility from raw materials? How many could recreate the supply chains that produce modern medicines? How many could maintain the electrical grid that powers our technological society? We've created a civilization so complex that its maintenance requires the coordinated knowledge of millions of specialists. Remove that coordination through war, pandemic, economic collapse, or natural disaster, and the knowledge disappears faster than it took to develop. The Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BCE provides a terrifying preview of how quickly advanced civilizations can vanish. Within a century, sophisticated societies across the Mediterranean lost the ability to produce bronze tools, maintain long-distance trade networks, and support the urban centers that had defined their civilizations for over 1,000 years. The archaeological record shows the same pattern everywhere. Complex societies suddenly simplified. Writing systems disappeared. Monumental architecture stopped. Population centers were abandoned. Within a few generations, descendants of Bronze Age civilizations were living as subsistence farmers with no memory of their ancestors' achievements. The genetic evidence reveals another disturbing pattern. Major population bottlenecks appear in the human genetic record at regular intervals, suggesting that our species has repeatedly faced near-extinction events that reduced global populations to small surviving groups. Each bottleneck represents a potential civilizational reset, where accumulated knowledge and technological capabilities were lost and had to be redeveloped from scratch. The Toba supervolcanic eruption 74,000 years ago reduced the human population to perhaps as few as 10,000 individuals worldwide. The Younger Dryas impact 12,900 years ago created another genetic bottleneck. The Black Death in the 14th century eliminated a third of Europe's population and destroyed entire knowledge traditions that had been maintained for centuries. Each reset event creates the same result. Surviving populations focused on immediate survival have no resources to maintain complex knowledge systems. Within generations, advanced understanding becomes legend, then myth, then is forgotten entirely. This explains why ancient texts consistently describe previous ages of human achievement that seem impossible, given our understanding of technological development. The Vedic texts describe flying vehicles and advanced weapons. Greek philosophers wrote about lost civilizations with capabilities that exceeded their own. Egyptian priests told Solon about Atlantis, a sophisticated society that had been destroyed by natural catastrophe thousands of years before recorded history. These weren't fantasies or religious allegories. They were historical memories of previous technological civilizations that had risen and fallen before the current cycle of human development began. The most terrifying aspect of this pattern is its inevitability. Every civilization believes it has achieved permanent mastery over natural forces. Every advanced society assumes its knowledge and institutions are too important to be lost. Every technological culture convinces itself that it has broken free from the cycles that destroyed previous civilizations. We're making the same assumption today. We believe our global communications networks, our distributed knowledge systems, and our technological redundancies make civilizational collapse impossible. But the same natural forces that destroyed previous advanced societies, cosmic impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, solar flares, pandemic diseases, remain as threatening today as they were 12,000 years ago. The difference is that our technological civilization is more fragile than any that came before. We depend on just-in-time supply chains, electrical grids that can be disrupted by solar storms, and computer networks vulnerable to electromagnetic pulses. A Younger Dryas-level catastrophe today wouldn't just destroy our cities. It would eliminate the technological infrastructure that our civilization requires to function. The survivors of such an event would face the same challenge as the survivors of the Ice Age catastrophe. They would possess fragments of advanced knowledge, but lack the industrial base required to implement that knowledge. Within a few generations, our satellites, nuclear reactors, and genetic engineering would become as mysterious to our descendants as the precision stonework at Göbekli Tepe is to us today. The reaction of the academic world to evidence of cyclical civilizational collapse reveals something deeper than skepticism. It exposes a deliberate suppression of knowledge that threatens the very myths our society is built upon. When researchers present proof of advanced prehistoric civilizations, they aren't met with curiosity. They're met with career destruction. Funding disappears. Papers are rejected. Reputations are quietly erased by institutions too terrified to face what the evidence implies. That fear isn't about science, it's about survival. The belief in linear progress, that humanity is always advancing, is the foundation of modern civilization. Governments, universities, and economies all depend on the illusion that we're moving steadily upward, that what exists now is the pinnacle of human achievement. But if civilizations rise and fall in cycles, that illusion collapses. Why build complex economies if knowledge is routinely lost? Why trust governments or academic systems if past societies, just as advanced, couldn't escape catastrophe? The financial implications are staggering. Every major economy runs on the assumption of continuous growth, that future generations will always be wealthier and more advanced. Evidence of repeated collapse makes those trillion-dollar assumptions worthless. The political consequences are just as dangerous. Democracies claim to represent humanity's most evolved systems. Authoritarian regimes claim eternal stability. Both narratives crumble if history proves that advanced civilizations always fall. So the suppression continues, not through open censorship, but through quiet control. Funding diverted, papers rejected, conferences closed. Evidence gets buried within isolated disciplines, ensuring no single field sees the full pattern. The result is an academic machine designed to prevent synthesis, a system that hides humanity's true history to protect its own power. And by denying the lessons of past collapses, we may be sealing our place in the next one. Graham Hancock's final revelation wasn't just about lost civilizations. It was a warning about our own fragility. We're not the first advanced society to believe we've conquered nature's cycles. We won't be the last to discover how wrong that assumption can be. The evidence of cyclical collapse forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Our technological civilization is temporary, destined to join the ruins of sophisticated societies that came before us. If this hidden history fascinates you, explore more suppressed archaeological evidence in our next video. Subscribe to uncover the truths that mainstream academia refuses to acknowledge.